Hi, my name's Phil. I like talking about politics, and in this video, I'd like to discuss a couple of recent comments from arch Brexiteer Nigel Farage and subject them to a little bit of scrutiny. The sooner people realise that this charlatan is trying to sell drowning people a concrete life preserver, the better. But first, if you'd like to be notified of daily news and politics, please subscribe to the channel. So, when he's found time to stop banging on about banks, Nigel Farage has a couple of things to say on Brexit this week, specifically about two people, Keir Starmer and Rupert Murdoch. He was rather more supportive of one than the other, as I'm sure you'll appreciate. So let's take Rupert Murdoch first, one of the most malign political forces in the world, and certainly in the UK during my lifetime. Nigel Farage, however, has a different view. On the news that Murdoch was stepping down from his throne of evil, Farage tweeted that Brexit would not have happened without Rupert Murdoch. He then said that he'd helped save the pound. Now, there are a couple of things I would like to say here. What Farage means, of course, is that without Murdoch, we'd have had to adopt the euro. In reality, because of Brexit, including the efforts of Murdoch and Farage, we are actually much more likely to adopt the euro in the future. As founder members of the EU, we had a permanent opt-out of the euro. During the 2016 referendum and beyond, there was a lot of misinformation about member states having to adopt the euro. Oh, it's in the rules, it's in the rules. Where is it in the rules? In this place. You look at this place. No, mate, that is for joining members, not all members, not existing members, joining members. Even then, I kept pointing out that Poland joined the EU. It's 19 years ago now. Next year, it's going to be their 20th anniversary being in the EU. They technically have to adopt the euro. They are still nowhere near adopting the euro. However, if we were to rejoin, then there is every chance that yes, we would be expected to adopt the euro, and we will be rejoining at some point. I not only expect to live to see the day myself, I want Farage to as well. And if we do adopt the euro, if we don't get an opt-out, if we do adopt the euro, we still vote to join anyway. I want a photojournalist to basically stalk Farage and film him paying for his pints down the local in euros. That will be his legacy. We can say that to him. That's your legacy. If we'd stayed in the EU, we'd still have the pound. We've got the euro because of you, mate. But the second thought that occurred regarding saving the pound was that the pound has actually been badly beaten up by Brexit. You know, as I've just mentioned the euro, this is the pound sterling to euro exchange rate since 1999, which of course is when the euro first entered circulation. Up and down, of course, as you'd expect, especially in the early years as it struggled to establish itself. Then it did. So, you know, it then gained against the pound. But since it's established itself, there's been two big dips in the value of the pound against the euro. The first coincided with the banking crash. A few years later, it started to recover, getting back up to its pre-crash levels then. David Cameron thought it would be a stunning wheeze to hold a referendum on leaving the EU, thinking he had next to no chance of losing. Well, he lost the referendum quicker than a dead pig losing its dignity in the presence of said Cameron. There then followed a crash in the value of the pound. A number of people made a lot of money famously from shorting the pound at this time. But notice the difference between that 2016 crash and the one just under a decade earlier. No recovery. It's been flat ever since. Over 7 years now, and that value of the pound hasn't even begun to make a recovery. This is what Nigel Farage calls saving the pound. It is now worth significantly less, and that means that we are paying higher prices for imports of food, medicines, clothes, other essentials. It means that when we need to attract workers from overseas, we have to pay more because the pound is not worth as much as their own currency, or of their own currency as it was before. We don't even get the benefit in reverse. It's usually said, well, with a weak pound, well, at least our exports will be cheaper. However, because we've more than blown that advantage away with the extra costs of actually exporting as a third country. So we don't even get that. Besides, because our productivity has gone down, our balance of trade has actually shifted more in favour of imports. For example, because we can't attract workers to work on farms, we're producing less food, which means we have to import more food. So we're paying higher prices for that. The reason the Tories keep delaying import controls on EU goods is because they know, and they've said as much, because it'll drive prices and shortages more. We'll need even more of our lower value pounds to get anything onto the supermarket and pharmacy shelves. Then there was a comment a few days earlier. Regarding Labour. He said, 2 years into a Labour government, it will be Brexit in name only. The Tories have made it easy by not diverging enough, he said. Now, from the start, I've said this will inevitably be the line that grifters like Farage take. He's already labelled Brexit a disaster. And the beauty of being nowhere near the levers of power is that he just gets to blame those who are. It's a disaster. It's a disaster. It's not Brexit that's a disaster. No, the Brexit I envisaged was absolutely marvellous. It's the way it was handled by those clowns in the government, you see. Now, let us remember that he voted for the Brexit deal. He got his excuses in at the time, but he voted for it. History records that he supported the deal. He voted for the deal. He urged other people to vote for the deal. And he stood down candidates in Conservative seats in order to help get the deal into reality. See, Farage is one of those who claims he wants to see the will of the people done. But if he'd not helped the Conservatives to win that election, the people were going to get a referendum on the terms of exit. They would have been able to choose, which included a choice not to leave at all. I've seen a few Brexit boneheads arguing recently with Keir Starmer. He tried to stop the will of the people, you see. He tried to stop the will of the people because he wanted a second referendum. A referendum is the will of the people. He wanted people to have a say on the terms of our exit. All those who blocked that referendum were ignoring the will of the people. But I've said before, right now, there are Brexiteers responsible for Brexit, and there are Brexiteers not directly responsible, and they attack each other because they need to blame other people for the mess. There is a group technically of Brexiteers who claim that it's all working out great and it's all fine, but they are a vanishingly small group of people these days. Most are labelling it a complete disaster. The likes of Farage, complete disaster. The likes of Rishi Sunak, complete disaster. Boris Johnson, it's a complete disaster. David Frost, it's a complete disaster. All the people, like the most prominent people, are all labelling it as a disaster. They're just blaming different people for the disaster. The likes of Farage blame the Tories blame Remainers. But when Labour in power, they will be united once more in blaming Labour. Farage has just given us a taste of what's to come. We were nearly there. Yes, the Tories are making a terrible mess of it all. But it was all chugging along. We were all getting the benefits. We were a few years away. We were going to get the benefits round about next Wednesday. And now they're gone. The only thing for it is to get the Tories back into power where they'll have to just start again from scratch. It'll probably take another 30 years to see the benefits. This would be the same Nigel Farage who argued before the referendum that we should remain in the single market, that it would be madness to leave the single market. You don't need to leave the single market. Norway and Switzerland, they do fine. We'll be like them. And he's now wetting his knickers at the prospect of a Labour government maybe getting in on the ground, even though they've not said anything, but maybe getting in on the ground floor of this new EU associate member proposal, which would involve joining the single market. In fact, you would think 2016 Farage would be fully in favour of it. You suggest to him, what if there was a way, Nige, right, to be in the single market, get all this free trade and not have to adopt any of these political union ideas? That'd be brilliant. Let's do that. But of course, the mainstream media never compares what people like Farage said in 2016 with what he says now, which is how it's possible for a man to be recorded saying one thing at one time and then saying the opposite when it suits him. But it is important to keep reminding people of what they were promised. Right now, Brexiteers are saying absolute disgrace that Starmer's talking about not lowering standards. We should absolutely be lowering our standards. People voted to stop following these rules from Brussels, you see, as if the two things got anything to do with each other. But people didn't vote to stop following rules from Brussels. They voted for lower costs of food, clothes, medicines and so on. They voted for better jobs. They voted for a better healthcare system. They voted for easier access to housing. That's what they voted for. Didn't get it, did they? Got the reverse, in fact. But people still want to vote for a higher standard of living, cheaper costs, better jobs, stronger NHS. And one day, and this is what the Brexiteers fear, one day the penny might drop, that the route to those is by building links with our neighbours, not building a bloody great MAGA wall around our sheep-infested plague island. But there we are. Those are my thoughts. Let me know yours in the comments below. Hope you found the video interesting. If you did, please click the like button. And if you'd like to support the channel further, the join button for memberships. And until next time, I'll see you later.